All right. Today is September 16th, 2025. And I know I said I wasn't going to make any more videos for a while, but just like the time before that, some crazy stuff pops off. And I really did try to suppress what I felt like the Holy Spirit was putting on my chest. So obviously, I was not the victor of that, even though I wrestled with it all week. But I'm going to share with you the things that I saw or the things that I see in this whole debacle here. Um, First off, it's the whole psyop aspect of it. You know, um, we can break this down to you know cause and reaction. The cause we'll never figure out if this thing was really real or staged. I know I've went through a lot of roller coasters watching other people, and I've felt those same things where I didn't know if it was real, or if it was fake. Then I started out thinking it was fake, then it was real, back to fake. And the whole point is that's the whole JFK psyop, right? We'll never know. No one will ever know, and that's the beauty of a ritual, because you don't know. It's the effect. It's the effect that matters the most, because that's the payload. Um, but also too, you know, on just the surface level, as Christians, I think we should conduct ourselves as Christians at all time. Even knowing in the back of your heart or the back of your mind that this whole thing could be faked, we have to be examples and good stewards of Christianity, compassionate, loving, caring, um, in all things. Because we're the closest thing that a lot of people will get to a Bible, or a lot of people will ever get to God. So we have to be the reflection of that, in all cases. And just to start this off, you know, I do, even if it's just, even if it's faked or not, I'm compassionate towards Charlie Kirk. I used to watch his debates, um, but at the same time, I was weary of the connections as well. I wasn't a diehard fan. Just I like to watch debates to learn what to say, or learn how to maneuver certain things when certain topics get popped up spiritually or biblically. So I was well aware of Charlie, and rest in peace if it if he did really get shot here, and I pray for his family. God bless his family. Please watch over him, God. Um, but with that being said, I do see ritual in this whole thing. Um, I'm not talking about it's called in. I'm talking about I see something spiritual that's beyond called in, and I don't mean to belittle this whole event, but again, I'm mindful and I am sorrowful if it's true. At the same time, I have to be a discerning Christian as well, and I do see things here that are of question. I'm not here to question whether if it was real or fake. Who knows? We'll never know. That's the beauty of it, right? If you're the things or the entities behind this, that's the beauty of it. You'll never know, and that's part of the psyop. Um, and the psyop runs deep. It's the whole, like the whole AI interference aspect of it. With AI, we'll never know what's real and what's fake, especially when you're watching things through a screen. These things could be set up through stage props and stuff like that. Quite possibly, who knows? Um, I believe the psyop is part of the division of people, of course, the left and the right, furthering on that whole division. That's going to be played out all the way through until the next left person is elected. And then the right will be pulling off, you know, the spirit of the right will be doing these things, or at least will be at blame or at fault for it. Um, but I believe it's misinformation, or like the psyop, the heavy psyop of this is you can't trust anybody, and it's supposed to discredit everybody. right? There's people that I've watched that I've learned so much from in the past few years, in the past decade, that went from thinking it's fake and shaming everybody for thinking that it's real to thinking that it's real, shaming everybody who thinks that it's fake in a matter of a couple days. And I was like, dang, even like the smartest people that I know are having a hard time with this. And it makes me, for a split second, it made me question everything they've ever done. Like maybe these people are just looking way too deep into stuff. And that's the psyop. It's to discredit everything and everyone. So and that's part of the policing of the internet and social media and stuff like that. It's like, where can you go with this, and what damage does that cause the nation? When they'll call it disinformation, and you're spreading disinformation, and that can lead to all kinds of other crazy stuff that they want to police, and they'll get the backing to do that because people won't know what to believe, and then long story short, they'll just side with their government or they'll side with the controllers. That's just how it goes. Um, yeah, I believe that's the meat of the psyop, but the spiritual significance of it all, the effect. I believe, and I'll share this with you, as I talked about many times when I've decoded video, when I've decoded cinema movies, that we see the exact same format. We see um, the ritualization of the coming Antichrist, right? Or the dragon, right? There's the promotion of that, the exaltation of that. There's also in every single movie, why is it that there's always the vodka ritual, right? There's always something about the shot or getting the shot. And I believe that this ritual shares the exact same points spiritually. I believe this is a vodka mark ritual and the exaltation of the dragon. And you can say it's the Antichrist, or you can say Satan or devil, whatever it may be. I'll share this with you, this information on this. We'll start out with the reason why I believe it has a lot to do with the vodka and the mark. And that's why I believe that whole ritual that already passed was way more significant than anybody ever imagined. It just is. And I'll prove this to you right here, right now. So, Charlie Kirk, Charlie James Kirk. So, where have we heard that name before? I know we've all saw the many videos where it's no secret. So, James Kirk is Captain Kirk. That was his stage name for that specific show, Star Trek. And yes, of course, Charlie was a Star Trek fan. We've seen all that stuff on TikTok. Um, why is this significant right here? Because of the warp speed element. Where have we heard this warp speed thing from? Where have we heard this? Well, there was Operation Warp Speed. Do you remember that? What is Operation Warp Speed? It was to roll out the VACA. It was a public-private partnership initiated by the United States government to facilitate and accelerate the development, manufacturing, and distribution of the COVID-19 VACAs, therapeutics, and diagnostics. Okay? Right? Right there, you should be like, holy crap. That's why the Star Trek connection is so important. I've seen so many people touched on the fact that his name sounds a lot like Captain Kirk. It's because of the whole warp speed. I thought this was old news. Okay, and then if you don't believe that, we'll keep on going. So Charlie Kirk, Charles, is a slang. Um, it's a slang for what we called, not we. Sorry, I take that back. What it was um it was a negative slang term, derogatory slang term for the VC back in the Vietnam War, right? The Viet Cong, Charlie, Viet Cong, VC. Even in his name alone has warp speed and the VC, the vaccine. It's also slang for that. Vaccine VC, the VC, Charlie. You can say that's a stretch, but he has James Kirk in his name. That's not a stretch. Okay, so it's not just the whole warp speed runs deeper, as we talked about before in prior videos, than just the Vaka. The Vaka was the allegory, was the symbol for technocracy, the whole technocracy warp speed push, as we've talked about before. It was about the warp speed to mixing iron with clay. And we see that once they tamper with, just even on the VC alone, it represents iron and clay because they're altering things and sticking them in you. So if they're making mRNA, DNA altering substances that can actually alter or mess with your DNA, therefore it becomes technocracy, technology. It's no longer pure and natural, and no longer are you because you're changed. So your original DNA is being altered. As we've talked about with the Twin Towers, that was symbolic for that. We'll get more into that in a minute. So remember the Twin Towers, the double helix, or even the XY chromosomes, whatever way you want to look at it. So when you alter that, it crushes down the original connection, the bridge to God, and in place of it is the One World Freedom Tower, which has the dimensions of the original Twin Towers were square, and then it has two squares within each other. So it's merging the two double helixes or the XY, creating a third, a triple helix, or even something new that's not the original design. So therefore, symbolically, that's crashing the connection to God, altering the bridge, as we spoke about before. All right, let's get back to where we're at. All right, so let's take a picture of the aerial footage. Okay, so if you're a regular on my videos, I've spoke about this many, many, many times before. About this symbol right here. So if you're just listening to this, you're going to miss it, unfortunately. As we call it on my channel, the Revelation 12 sign symbol. Has different variations. Sometimes it has a staircase, right? But it usually looks like the tip of a what? A needle. It's also looks like the Nevada sign, and it's a reflection of Virgo as well. That's why we call it the Revelation 12 sign. And it's used in cinema quite frequently, quite often. All right, so we see this symbol right here. This is the reason I even did the video, because it caught my eye. And I was like, whoa, it's in the same trajectory. One day I'll figure out how to say that word. And the same trajectory as the bullet. That's just like, okay, so it's the Revelation 12 sign. So if you've been watching my videos, you're well aware of this sign. I've done videos just on this symbol, and it's in every single movie almost. It's just it goes unnoticed. It's one of those symbols that people don't talk about. Just like the rabbit wasn't talked about for the longest time, but now more and more people are starting to make connections of the rabbit. Same thing with the bridge. There's always a crashed bridge, whether in media, there's always some kind of bridge crashing. or in cinema. I think every single movie I've ever watched, there's always a bridge scene. Even the low budget movies, there's always a significant bridge scene that goes unnoticed. The house is under the bridge is crashed, or there's some kind of crazy um, high speed chase on a bridge that crashes. It's just because it's symbiotic. It's uh, symbolic for exactly what we're going to get into right now. If you watched my videos before, you know exactly what it's symbolic for. I kind of gave it away with the whole DNA thing, the bridge to God. Once it's altered, it's crashed. All right, so we have the Revelation 12 sign. So let's get into Revelation 12. And ironically, this whole shooting took place at what time? 12 in the hour of the 12th hour. Um, and to be more specific, it was 12:20 at first. Then they changed it to 12:23. Ironically, and this is what I heard from another channel, and Israel, it's 9:23 there, which the spiritual significance of 9:23. A lot of people think it's going to be the rapture date, but people don't realize that 9:23 is not a rapture date. It's the fall equinox date. It's a high holy date for witchcrafters, for the occult. That's when they do their spells. That and Samhain, the week of the last week of Halloween in the first week of November. Um, so second to that holiday is 9/23, if not first, because it's the fall, right? That's why they love doing it. It represents the fall of man. So 9/23, that's where it comes from. All right. So let's check out Revelation 12. So 12:23, I believe, represents 12, Revelation 12, 2 and lines 3. Revelation 2 and 3. Right? She being with child cried, travailed in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns upon his head. Okay? um, if you don't know what Revelation 12 is, just go and read. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I want this to be a quick decode. So let's go back to the name of this little town that it happened in. It's called Orem, which means famous spear. Additionally, it's believed to be derived from Ormi, an Old Norse personal name meaning serpent or dragon. So we have a Revelation 12 sign dragon connection. That's no coincidence. So that sign, as we call it on this channel, the Revelation 12 sign, you'll find it everywhere. And it's a layered symbolic meaning for the Revelation 12, that whole story of Revelation 12. Go back and read it. And it also represents the tip of the needle tip, because it looks like a needle tip. And it also represents Virgo, which is the woman, as we just read. And that's above, and below is the Nevada symbol, right? Sin City. The lithium, the biggest lithium mine in America. The lithium battery, the rabbit, right? The electricity. As you know, Las Vegas produces or puts out more electricity than any other city in the world. The electric god, Zeus. You see the layered connections? It's a deep, deep meaning. Okay? In this particular instance, I believe it to be more leaning towards, of course, Orem, the dragon, and also the tip of the needle. All right? And it's no coincidence that the shot is synonymous with the needle tip. Okay. The dude, Tyler, which is the guard of the Freemason Lodge, by the way, is a Tyler. Um, he was 22 years old. And as we studied on this channel before, 22 represents BB88. So 22 alphanumerically is BB, and then 88. And 88 is associated with the mark as well, because 22 on the Hebrew alphabet is the X, and a Tav is a mark. Okay? So that's how we get the whole mark connection to it. BB88. That's why they love using the number 22 in cinema. That's what it means. All right, so the neck is allegory for the bridge from earth to heaven, as we talked about in anatomy decodes, right? From the body to the head. The shot in the neck represents collapsing or the altering of the bridge. They're killing that connection from you to God, allegorically speaking. Remember, the bridge allegorically represents Jesus as well. There's only one way to the Father, and that's through the Son, right? And we know, scripturally speaking, that the rainbow represents Jesus, the real rainbow. And there's also 7 vertebrae in the neck, which is synonymous with the 7, with being synonymous with God, as well as the 7 churches, and or the 7 years of trib, and or the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 vials. So this could also be meaning the beginning of something. The neck is very significant to the occult and scripturally. All right, so let's get into the next one. Is this symbol right here? Actually, the one in the circle is the most important thing. It's the same thing, just several times over. And what that symbol represents is not a pentagram, but a pentagon. But same thing. Same. They mean the same. A pentagram is a pentagon. And if you've been watching the last 2 videos I've been putting out before the Charlie Kirk shooting, you'll know exactly what the pentagon resembles or is. So we got to dive into their world, into their language to understand it. Right? So let's get into this. So that is a pentagon on the inside of that. Remember, we studied these elements right here. Do you remember? I remember. Go back and watch the last 2 videos if you didn't. The pentagram. And then somebody also said, one of my favorite channels, Enter the Stars, said it also looked like a menorah. Coincidentally, a menorah and a pentagon are both the same thing. I'll explain this. And in just different ways. They represent a body. So the upright star represents the human body. An arm, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. An inverted one represents the Baphomet. So the upright one represents the human body. And the human body has uh, basically 4 to 5 elements. Well, it has 5 elements to it, right? So air, fire, earth, water, and spirit. But coincidentally, this how it represents the human body. That represents uh, the 5 bodies of consciousness: mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and divine consciousness. That's your connection to God. You see how these emulate a body. And then coincidentally, in the middle of that, you had a human being in the middle of that. So a human being represents the pentagram, the upright star. But when the star is inverted or tilted, it represents the Baphomet. It represents inverted, tilted man. Okay, so again, so there's the air, fire, earth, water, and spirit, and that's synonymous with mental, spirit, physical, emotional, and divine consciousness of a human being. Get it? So instead of that being a pentagram, it's allegorically representing a human being. The menorah, we talked about it last week, how the menorah represent the endocrine system on a human being. And we can get into that with this right here. Remember therefore whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly and remove thy candlestick out of its place, except thou repent. Remember, this is just parabolic, allegory. But this allegorically represents a human being, an upright human being, because it's not tilted. But the shot is what destroys the human being, and it enters the star. It was allegorical for the shot, the vodka, the technocracy push. Everything, when we subside or agree to technocracy, or it goes back to, to calling on God first and foremost. We either choose, just like Jesus said, render to what Caesar's is Caesar's, render to God's what's God's. Are you God's or are you the world's? We can choose the world's help, the world's aid, the world's medicine, the world's cure, or we can choose God's cure. I'm not saying that you should never go to the doctor. By all means, I'm not saying that at all. But did anybody consult with God first? Right? And it's not about that specific thing. It was the step in the wrong direction of choice. It has nothing to do with the actual snake, it's snake oil. It's just, it was subconscious. It was spiritual. Had nothing to do with the actual substance. I hope not. It probably did. But what it really meant was a step in the wrong direction. That was the pivotal time where we had a choice. We had to cross that line. Either we take God's counsel, or we bank on the world. It goes back to that saying, those who are not afraid to lose their life will gain it. Those who are afraid to lose their life will lose it. I should have that verse always pulled up, but I don't. And I always ruin it too. But yeah, that's what it's about, man. It's about, we either choose the world and the things that come with it, or we choose God. And when we do need services, when we do need things in this world, we consult with God first. We let God be the facilitator of that coming, of that need, of that emergency. Then go to wherever you need to go. Once you have that connection and communication with God, it makes the world a difference. So where else have we seen this ritual? Well, let's go back to the whole Twin Tower conversation. All right. So there's a big government building called the Pentagon, and an airplane crashed into the Pentagon. An airplane is allegorical for a fuselage, or a needle as well. It contains, it's all it is it's a barrel, just, and that's another thing. A needle is called, the stuff that contains the sauce, the liquid, is called a barrel, which sounds a lot like a shot, right? A gunshot. Um, Same thing with, if you've been watching my tools for decoding movies, we've talked about it many times, as well as other channels. Where I got that from was from Enter the Stars, which is a great channel. That specific um, avatar of the airplane, just without the wings, it carries cargo. It's just an allegory version of the shot. And just like it's the same ritual. This represents the body and that represents the shot entering and piercing the body, as I just explained, the 5 states of consciousness. Okay, same thing with, we know by now that the twin towers were allegorical for the double helix or the XY chromosomes. We know there's an anatomical aspect to this. So this makes it no difference. It represents the exact same thing. Right? All right, so let's back this up. So the twin towers represent the X and the Y chromosome, right? And so we've been talking about this as well as other channels as well, about how we've been talking on this channel for a long time now, how the X-Man, right? Remember, the X-Man represents the allegorical, the feminine spirit. It's just allegorical. It doesn't mean a woman. It was just allegorical for the earth, and things of the earth represent the feminine spirit biblically. It's actually backwards to the occult, but biblically, which is the most important thing. I didn't mean to throw you for a loop, but represents the X spirit, and we see that encompassed by the X-Man over and over in music and movies, over and over and over. What that represents is anything other than the choice of God. So it's the world. When you're worldly, you become X'd out. You're feminized. You're guided by a different spirit, which is a feminine Jezebel spirit or a feminine Babylonian spirit. Remember, she sits fat and high, and she's the whore of Babylon. That's what that represents. It's the earthly. When we care about earthly things instead of spiritual, godly things, where that means we have the X spirit. When we trust on government for healing before we go consult with God, that's the X spirit. When you get, so it was the destruction of the X and Y, or the double helix, in place of what replaced it was the one world Freedom Tower. And that has both in place, like both squares encapsulated in each other, creating a third world tower, a third helix, or a woman encompassing a man, right? Spiritually speaking, burning man, right? That's where that comes from. And ironically, there was a transgender connection to it so far. And that means everything, because that's allegorical for the X-Man. I can get into this whole X thing. I've talked about it many times in videos prior, where I've explained it where you can probably understand it, where it's more palatable. But right now I'm on a time limit, so I don't really want to go through all that unless you want me to make a separate video. And I kind of don't want to make more videos. If I have to, I will. All right, so remember, the X represents the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet, is the Tav, and that represents a mark. So you're marked. You're either marked by God. Remember, there's a good and bad version to all things. There's the tree of good and evil. That's duality in this world. That's your feelings of good sensations to bad sensations. That's a reflection of duality. The feeling of good in your heart and the feeling of wickedness in your heart. That's a reflection of the duality, the tree of good and evil. Your sensory, when it comes to anatomical, it's your ability to feel, right? You know what feels good and you know what feels bad. That's the reflection of the tree of good and evil, duality in this world, right? So there's a good X, which is the cross, and then there's the bad X. It's the opposite. So it's either you choose God or you choose the world, and everything that encompasses it, which is the current ruler of this world, right? Okay, so there's a transgender connection, which is the X, unfortunately, because it's a feminine spirit encompassing a man, right? So the one Freedom Tower represents the X chromosome, that woman encompassing a man, burning man, burning mankind. Okay. Um, okay. So there's an X connection to it. So that's piercing the Y. You see that around here? The menorah? See the Y, the prominent Y around the menorah? Because that's what that represents. The shot, the X, X'd out the man. So that's the burning of the man. It's um, the woman encompassing the man. These are all figurative, not a literal woman. Literal women are wonderful, beautiful creatures. God's created them, but allegorical and biblically in occult speaking, that's what that's what these things mean. And that Y is very prominent. Remember, this is a human being. This represents a five-pointed star, and it's a male being taken out by a shot. There's a transgender connection. We know the Vaka. We know what all that stuff means. It's the X, Xing out the Y, like the two twin towers. And that's being replaced by the one World Freedom Tower. Okay, so it happened on September 10th, right? 9, 10. That's your 19. It's just backwards. Just play on numbers. And then, of course, you have your 9/11 connection. Even right here, you have your 11 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On this side, you have 4. That's 9. And then you have your 47. Remember, he had his number 47 hats that he was throwing away. There's your 11. You can do this kind of stuff all day. I'm not going to do it. But, and also, there's a metonic cycle that's connected to 9, 11, 19. The 19 is very prominent. You'll find it in cinema. You'll see the 19, and it's usually associated with the 9/11. So you'll see it like on a license plate. You'll see 19, then 9/11, or you'll see 19 over and over because 19 and 9/11 are connected. Because 9/11 is synonymous with COVID. It just is. Because it represents 9/11 was the spiritual act of it, the collapsing of the towers, and then it manifested 19 years later. They called it COVID 19, and it was about the technocracy, transhumanism, all the above, the altering of the DNA. It was the physical manifestation of the spiritual act of 9/11. It's completely connected. All right. Um, that's pretty much all I have for you right now. That's the spiritual enactment of what's going on. I'm not saying this channel is not saying, oh, it's a spiritual act, and then not explaining to you what exactly the spiritual act is. I gave it to you. There you go. Um, this is another good understanding why Christians, real, true, devout people who love Christ, shouldn't be entangled in politics. I hate to say it. I made videos on it way before. Um, we shouldn't be getting entangled in none of this stuff. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's connected to Charlie, and I can be here all day talking about that kind of stuff. Not going to do it. We'll take it face value right now. Um, if you ask me personally, I guarantee you I'll give you a different answer. But we're going to take it face value, and you know what? Rest in peace, and God bless their family. And please, doesn't matter if it's smoke and mirrors. The fact is, these kind of situations we have to be respectful for. We're the closest thing that people have to God sometimes. And we have to be good practitioners and examples of it. That's how we win people over um, to the faith. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. Again, I'm still debating on not making any more videos after this, or at least taking some time out and then coming back with a vengeance. I don't know. You let me know. All right, gotta go.